As we can see on the screen, our chief guest is arrived. We can see that on the screen. Shortly, our honorable chief guest will be with us in the auditorium. Can we please put our hands together to welcome our chief guest, Honorable Shri Rajnath Singh, Minister for Home Affairs, Government of India. Can we please rise and accord a warm welcome to our most honorable chief guest. And we also welcome our presiding officer for today's program, Honorable Dr. Dinesh Sharma, Lord Mayor of Lucknow. We request all our guests to kindly rise for national anthem. आप सभी से निवेदन है कि कृपया राष्ट्रगान के लिए अपने स्थान पर खड़े हो जाएं. take your seats. What could have been a better way to start this evening? And we thank these little children of City Montessori School, Kanpur Road campus, this campus where we are, for that beautiful presentation. Say, God sufficeth, all things above all things. Nothing in the heaven or on the earth, but God sufficeth. Verily, He is in Himself, the knower, sustainer, the omnipotent. Thank you very much, children. And in our tradition, in Indian tradition, guests are treated, regarded like God. And it's said, Atithi Devo Bhava. That means guests are regarded in Indian cultural tradition as God. And we are so honored today to have here with us our chief guest, Honorable Shri Rajnath Singh, Minister for Home Affairs, Government of India, and our presiding officer for this evening, Honorable Dr. Dinesh Sharma, Lord Mayor of Lucknow. Can we once again put our hands together to welcome our guests and all the eminent guests, legal luminaries who have come from different parts of the globe to make this 16th International Conference of Chief Justices of the World a success. Love to all our friends coming from the different parts of the world.
An honor we feel by your presence this day. We're blessed that you're here today. We sing this song with gratitude and thanks to you we say. An honor we feel by your presence this day. We're blessed that you're here today. We sing this song with gratitude and thanks to you we say. We welcome you, our honored guests on this day. We welcome you, our honored guests on this day. Oh, this occasion so great. Oh, what a great joy it brings. Blessing us all around. Deep in our hearts you remain. Precious your blessings we need. And since your presence succeed. With an open heart we greet you today. We welcome you, our honored guests on this day. We welcome you, our honored guests on this day. An honor we feel by your presence this day. We're blessed that you're here today. We sing this song with gratitude and thanks to you we say. We welcome you, our honored guests on this day. We welcome you, our honored guests on this day. We welcome you, our honored guests on this day.
We thank Mr. Arun. This is for the benefit of our guests who have come from different parts of the world. That in India, when we greet somebody, we say Namaste. That's how we greet our guests. We say Namaste. That means, my soul honors your soul. I honor the place in you where the entire universe resides. I honor the light, love, truth, beauty and peace within you, because it is also within me. In sharing these things, we are united, we are the same, we are the one. So to say Namaste to you, that is to welcome you, I invite on stage Dr. Vinita Kamran, the principal of this campus, the host campus, that's the Kanpur Road campus, and secretary of this conference, to deliver her welcome address. Can we please put our hands together and welcome on stage Dr. Vinita Kamran.
Most Honorable Chief Guest, Shri Rajnath Singh Ji, Minister for Home Affairs, Government of India, Honorable Mr. Dinesh Sharma, the Presiding Officer for today's function, and the Mayor of Lucknow, His Excellency Mr. Galema Motlanthe, President of the Republic of South Africa, Her Excellency Mrs. Chandrika Kumara Tunge, President of the Republic of Sri Lanka, His Excellency Mr. Stepan Mesic, President of the Republic of Croatia, His Excellency Mr. Qasim Uddin, President of the Republic of Mauritius, His Excellency Mr. Ludwig Scotty, President of the Republic of Nauru, His Excellency Sir Rodney Eyre Lawrence Williams, Governor General of Antigua and Barbuda, His Excellency Sir Aikob T. Italelli, Governor General of Tuvalu, Your Lordships, Honorary Chief Justices, eminent members of judiciary and court of justice, legal luminaries, peace promoters, parents, teachers, and dear students. I feel great pleasure in extending a warm welcome to you all on behalf of City Montessori School at this momentous occasion when we have assembled here to promote unity of the world. When I look around, I feel immense joy and happiness to see the great statesmen and advocates of world peace who have dedicated themselves to the cause of justice. It is very clear that the distinguished personalities present here have a common aim of uniting mankind, and thus I'm inclined to say that this conference has sounded the bugle to usher a new era of world unity. Your support for this great cause from almost more than 80 countries is enough to indicate to the heads of nations as to which way the wind is blowing. In the last 7 decades of its existence, the UN has seen more people die in great numbers all over the world that had died in both the world wars together. Every country is building up massive stockpiles of nuclear, chemical, and biological weapons. Countries are spending precious resources on arms and armaments, even as the citizens suffer from lack of clean drinking water and extreme poverty. Moreover, danger of a nuclear world war is looming large over our heads. Thus, the entire CMS family and the citizens of Lucknow are extremely thankful to you for responding to our children's call for world unity. Everyone knows how busy you all are. Yet, you have spared your precious time to express your solidarity for the cause of world peace, which in turn shall convince the entire humanity to take urgent steps for fostering unity and peace in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, today's grand cultural program, presented by almost 2,500 students, is specially being organized in the honor of our most distinguished guests. Today's day will be written in golden letters in the history of CMS, when we have so many learned and most highly respectable senior members of judiciary who are also the leading citizens of the world amidst us to watch the future citizens of the society showcasing their energy and talents. I also extend my heartiest welcome to our dear parents who have come in large numbers. In fact, with the total commitment of our parents to the philosophy of CMS, their wholehearted support to the vision of a united world, and their belief that the children are the most valuable asset that we have, and they have to be nurtured right from the beginning to grow into world-class citizens, has brought CMS to the forefront of this unique movement, which is now spreading far and wide. CMS has always been known for its holistic education, humanistic ideology, and global vision. It strives to impart knowledge coupled with wisdom and with an emphasis on human values, character, tolerance, peace, and brotherhood. It is no wonder that the school has been awarded the UNESCO Peace Prize in Education and Gusi Peace Prize. Dear delegates, here I shall take this opportunity to mention that this all has been possible due to the vision of our founder manager, Dr. Jagdish Gandhi, and our founder director, Dr. Mrs. Bharti Gandhi, and their selfless, devoted, and untiring efforts. They have dedicated themselves to the service of mankind and have striven relentlessly for their vision of a united world, which is free from the narrow confines of caste, creed, and geographical boundaries. A world which is free of war, its fear, and devastations. They have always propagated that it is our children who can change the world, and they have to be prepared from now only. The children have to develop right attitudes, values, and personalities. They have to become a gift of God to mankind and a pride of the human race. To give a better understanding of other cultures, it was their vision of Dr. and Mrs. Gandhi and Dr. Jagdish Gandhi to start various international events and exchange programs in the school so that the children become world-class citizens. We at CMS believe that schools should be a lighthouse to the society and must concern itself with the affairs of the age. Therefore, CMS as the self-appointed custodian of the welfare of the 2 billion children born and yet to be born has taken upon the challenge to safeguard the lives of the future.
Of the Republic of South Africa, who is sitting in the audience. He was the president from 2008 to 2009. His Excellency Stepan Mesic, President of the Republic of Croatia from 2000 to 2010, nearly 10 years. His Excellency, the President of Croatia. His Excellency Sir Rodney Eyre Lawrence William, GCMC Governor General of Antigua and Barbuda, His Excellency Sir Icova T. Italelli, GCMC Governor General of Tuvalu, Her Excellency Mrs. Sodevi Chan, Secretary of State, Ministry of Cambodia, His Excellency Mr. Taib Lau, Minister of Justice, Keeper of Seals of Algeria, His Excellency Mr. Amir Muharremi, Ambassador Extraordinary of the Republic of Croatia, His Excellency Dr. Hassan El Talib, Ambassador of the Republic of Sudan to India, His Excellency Mr. Hamza Yahya Sharif, Ambassador Peoples of Democratic Republic of Algeria, His Excellency Mr. Petko Doykov, Ambassador of Bulgaria, Embassy New Delhi, His Excellency Sir Sabit Sik, Ambassador of Bosnia and Herzegovina, परम पूज्य बाबा साईं पीठाधीश्वर संत असूदाराम आश्रम। इसके अलावा हमारे पास जिन देशों से प्रतिनिधि आज आए हैं वो हम उन सब का स्वागत करते हैं और उनमें हमारे बीच में हैं अफगानिस्तान, अल्जीरिया, एंटीगा एंड बारबुडा, अर्जेंटीना, अजरबैजान, बांग्लादेश, बेनिन, भूटान, बोस्निया हर्जेगोविना, ब्राजील, बल्गारिया, कंबोडिया, कैमरून, कोलंबिया, कोट d'Ivoire, क्रोएशिया, इक्वाडोर, इजिप्ट, इथियोपिया, फिजी आइलैंड, जॉर्जिया, गयाना, इंडिया, इटली, जमैका, किर्गिज रिपब्लिक, लेबनान, मेडागास्कर, मलावी, मॉरिशस, मंगोलिया, मोरक्को, नेपाल, निकारागुआ, पनामा, पैराग्वे, पेरू, फिलीपीन, पोलैंड, सीशेल्स, स्लोवेनिया, साउथ अफ्रीका, श्रीलंका, सूडान, सूरिनाम, स्वाजीलैंड, ताइवान, तंजानिया, चैड, थाईलैंड, टिमोर लेस्टे, टोगो, टर्की, टुवालू, युगांडा, यूक्रेन, यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका, उरुग्वे, जाम्बिया, Zanzibar, and Zimbabwe. We are very honored to welcome all these eminent guests, the chief justices and judges from various countries who are participating in this conference. Dear friends, this conference is organized to safeguard the future of over 2 billion children of the world whose future has become progressively more insecure and unprotected during past nearly 7 decades since the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki and the outbreak of the Second World War and the recent spread of international terrorism, global warming, environmental degradation, stockpiling of arms and ammunition, and ever-increasing expenditure on military and military research and making of nuclear weapons of for mass destruction, the fear of a third world war and a nuclear holocaust. How to safeguard the future of the world's 2 billion children. This vision was started 16 years ago. This is the 16th conference. Our children collected signatures, 1 lakh signatures, and sent to the then Secretary General of the United Nations, Kofi Annan, requesting him to do something to safeguard the future of the world's over 2 billion children and the generations yet to be born. He wrote back on we wrote on several letters, and the 1st of September, letter 99, was very prominent, and he replied on 11th of October, saying that we at United Nations can do nothing alone either. Our strength is the strength of our member states when they agree to act together. People, regions and the nations look to the United Nations to protect them from hunger, disease and natural disasters whenever the task seems too big for the nations or the regions to handle alone. But we at United Nations can do nothing alone either. He wrote that we are having the Millennium Summit of World Leaders to consider how the 21st century can be made more humane and more peaceful. So we are having, at the close of the 20th century, we are having the Millennium Summit of World Leaders, where all the leaders of the world will be assembled here in New York. It is up to you, the people of the United Nations, to make sure your leaders come to New York for the Millennium Summit, thoroughly resolved to take decisions which could lead to a better life for all of us and for our children of the world. And then, when this letter came, he also said that I am counting on you all and I wish you well. Then I thought that he is counting on the people of the United Nations. He says it is up to you, the people. That means at that time, there were 6 billion people. He says, through you, Mr. Gandhi, I want to appeal to the 6 billion people of this world to make sure their leaders come to New York for the Millennium Summit thoroughly resolved. That means it is the people who should encourage their leaders to create something like a world parliament or a world government and a world court of justice. We at United Nations can do nothing alone. We are having the Millennium Summit of World Leaders. The leaders will come. So I made 400 copies of that letter. I put my own letter and requested all the presidents and the prime minister at that time that you are going to the Millennium Summit of World Leaders, and there you should discuss the position, the plight of the children. What is the future of going to be the children's future in this world? In the face of so many nuclear bombs and neutron bombs and so much of agony and so much of war and destruction and all that, what is going to be the future? So this letter, when we got, so our Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee, replied that that I am going to the Millennium Summit of World Leaders. With the help of other leaders, I will see that the future of our children become more secure. And then also some letters came like from Australia government, and one letter was from the President of Slovakia that we will support this cause of children in the United Nations. Rest of the letters were just saying that we have sent your letter to the Law Ministry, to the Home Ministry, to the Prime Minister's office, to the President's office, and that was the only reply. So then I got frightened what to do, and then immediately at that time I got a letter from the United Nations that there is going to be, before the Millennium Summit of World Leaders, there is going to be the Millennium Forum of NGOs and civil society organizations. So they invited me. Kofi Annan sent a letter. I attended from 22nd to 26th of May 2000, that Millennium Forum meeting, and I came to know that in the 53rd General Assembly of the United Nations, held on 10th of May 1909, it was the general consensus, which was mentioned by Kofi Annan in his report. There was a general consensus for a new political order and new economic order of the world. And I thought to myself, this kind of already existing, the European Union is an example, and the European Parliament is an example of one political order, and the Euro currency of 18 countries and 28 countries, European Parliament is an example of one political order and one economic order. Why not the whole world should have one political order and at least one economic order, one currency? So I proposed in the Millennium Forum meeting, and it was passed. We were 1,350 people, 50 representatives representing over 1,000 organizations from over 100 countries, and I brought this document of 24 pages. It was a document where it was decided. I sent this document to all the presidents and the prime ministers in 2000 when I returned back with this document, and I wrote to each one of them that you are going to the Millennium Summit of World Leaders, take a decision to unite yourself to form something like, just say, for example, the Woodrow Wilson, President of America, called a meeting after the First World War. The war was from 1914 to 1918. And in the 1918, he called a meeting, and with his efforts, the people formed the League of Nations, and the First World War could stop for 20 years. There was no war from 18 to 1938. But 1938, Germany's Hitler attacked France, and the European war started, which turned into a Second World War, the biggest war of time that was 1938 to 1945. And in 1945 again, a president like Franklin D. Roosevelt, which were exploded on 6th and 9th of August 1945 in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The number of bombs are increasing. There have been 3 efforts. One by Woodrow Wilson, who made the League of Nations in 1918, and the First World War was stopped. There was another effort, initiative taken by this visionary world leader Franklin D. Roosevelt, and he brought the United Nations to being. And third effort was also by the Prime Minister of France, Robert Schuman, who called a meeting of 76 members of Parliament of European countries in 1950, and he discussed with them that Europe is burning, let us save it. So they all agreed to form the European Union, which turned into a European Parliament of 28 countries, and also the 18 countries joined the euro currency. So what I mean to say, there have been 3 efforts. Now there is a 4th effort is needed. We are very happy that our Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister Shri Modi ji is making effort to unite the world. He is going here and there all over the world to talk to the people, talk to the leadership, and I am sure that very soon he is also going to have a meeting of nearly 50 or 54 countries of African countries in October, late October. So I am sure that the efforts of our Prime Minister are going to bear fruits. We are looking for someone who can call a meeting of the world leaders and discuss with them and unite this world for the children. Children are the common concern, and they are the common denominator for all the nations of the world. And we believe that the leaders of the world will come forward. And today we are very happy that Honorable Shri Rajnath Singh ji is here, who is the kingmaker, who is the Prime Minister maker, who declared the name of Modi ji to become the Prime Minister. He was the President. Under his presidentship, his party won the total majority. He is a great leader. We appeal to him, appeal to Honorable Rajnath Singh to look after the voice of the children. These 4 children also appeal to you. And this is the appeal of 2.5 billion children of the world to safeguard their future, because their future is becoming more and more insecure, because the nations have found out only one solution for the problems they have between themselves, and that is the war. But our Constitution of India says, Article 51, that says, the state shall endeavor, A, to promote international peace and security, B, maintain just and honorable relations between nations, C, foster respect for international law, and D, encourage settlement of international disputes by arbitration. So this Article 51 says, disputes shall be settled by arbitration, not by armaments, not by armies. So this is our Constitution. I appeal to honorable judges who have come here from nearly 61 or 61 countries to have the talk with their presidents, with their Prime Minister, with their leadership, to have such a provision in their constitutions, and ultimately the leaders of the world should unite for the sake of children. Because children are the common concern for all the nations of the world. World peace is a byproduct of world unity. Without unity, peace will not be established. Peace is the byproduct of unity. And unity requires 2 things, a common denominator or a common concern and a binding thread. Children, 2.5 billion children are the common concern, and the binding thread will be their future is at stake. So their future, for their future's sake, we should unite. That is my request. That is the request of all the children. 52,000 children of City Montessori School, on behalf of 2.5 billion children of the world, we appeal to you, Honorable Rajnath Singh ji. We appeal to all the leaders who are here from various parts of the world. We appeal to all the chief justices and judges who have assembled here for various parts of the world. I welcome you all to this conference. Thank you very much.
The objectives of the conference. When I invited Dr. Gandhi, I quoted the great Indian philosopher Swami Vivekananda, who said that there needs to be know that one idea which is most important. And the same great philosopher also said, arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is achieved. So I'm sure all of us, with the blessings of God Almighty and with the support of all our friends, will be able to achieve this goal. Lead me from the unreal to the real. Lead me from darkness unto light. Lead me from death to immortality. I'm created by divine light. I'm sustained by divine light. I'm protected by divine light. I'm surrounded by divine light. And I'm ever growing within this divine light. With this message, I would request our Honorable Chief Guest, our Presiding Officer, and all our eminent guests to kindly light the lamp of divinity so all of us are protected with this divine light. I would request respected Geeta Didi, respected Dr. Gandhi, respected Dr. Mrs. Bharti Gandhi to kindly escort our chief guest on stage. And I would request all our eminent guests to please come on stage for the lighting of the lamp ceremony. I would request respected Mr. Garg, respected Dr. Roger Kingdon. So please come on stage, respected Mr. R.C. Gupta, and I would request all the principals of City Montessori School, all the campuses, to kindly garland our chief guest and all the guests when they come on stage. Escorts, if you could please, request the guests to use this staircase and bring them on stage from the staircase on the front. And we would also request respected Mr. Vinay Gandhi, respected Mrs. Mona Gandhi, to please join us on stage for the lighting of the lamp ceremony. All our Chief Justices, Heads of State, Judges, you are requested to please join us for this ceremony. And parents, आपसे निवेदन है कि जरा एक बार तालियां बजा दीजिए जब हमारे मुख्य अतिथि, सभी विशिष्ट अतिथि मंच पर हैं और दीप प्रज्वलन कर रहे हैं और माल्यार्पण से उनका स्वागत हो रहा है.
Peace and harmony. May the Lord keep His light always burning forever and ever, forever and ever, forever and ever. Peace and harmony. May the Lord keep His light always burning forever and ever. May this light spread far all over the world. Peace and harmony. May the Lord keep His light always burning forever and ever, forever and ever, forever and ever.
After lighting of the lamp ceremony, we would request all our guests to please be with us on the steps for a group photograph. Our chief guest is already there for the group photograph. Request our principals to please escort our guests on the steps for a group photograph, please. It's time now to capture this moment so it stays fresh in our memories always, that when the concept grew 16-year-old, inauguration when we assemble here on the first day of the conference. We present the key to the city of Lucknow to acknowledge our appreciation to one of the leaders who has been supporting the cause for which this conference is organized. And once everyone settles down in the auditorium, we will be conducting that ceremony on stage once again. And we are very, very pleased to announce that this year we'll be presenting the key to the city of Lucknow, and this key is presented on behalf of the citizens of Lucknow, and we'll be requesting Honorable Dr. Dinesh Sharma, Lord Mayor of Lucknow, for doing the honors once we make the announcement, and we will also be requesting sir after that for his blessings. We would request Dr. Gandhi to please escort our Lord Mayor on stage, and we are pleased to announce that this year we are presenting the key to the city of Lucknow on behalf of citizens of Lucknow to Honorable Mr. Justice Osman Batoko, President, Supreme Court of Benin. Can we please put our hands together to thank Sir for his support? May I request Honorable Mr. Justice Osman Batoko, President, Supreme Court of Benin, to please come on stage. As we are here, we are going to present key to the city of Lucknow to Sir, and we thank our Honorable Mayor, Lord Mayor of Lucknow, Dr. Dinesh Sharma, for being with us on stage, for doing the honors. Here we have Sir on stage. Can we please give a louder round of applause to Honorable Mr. Justice Batoko, President, Supreme Court of Benin. May we request the photographers to please kneel down a bit so people sitting there can see what's happening on stage. Yes, thank you so much. And I would request Professor Geeta Gandhi Kingdon, President, City Montessori School, to kindly read out the certificate of appreciation.
On behalf of the citizens of Lucknow, India, Dr. Dinesh Sharma, the Mayor of Lucknow, respectfully presents the key to the city of Lucknow to Honorable Mr. Justice Usman Batoko, President of the Supreme Court of Benin, in recognition of his unstinting support to the cause of world unity and world peace, and to the appeal of over 50,000 students of City Montessori School, Lucknow, to ensure a safe and nuclear-free future for the world's over 2 billion children and generations yet to be born, at the 16th International Conference of Chief Justices of the World on Article 51 of the Constitution of India, organized by City Montessori School, Lucknow, India.
All the photographers, can you please kneel down? पीछे कुछ भी दिखाई नहीं दे रहा है कि क्या हो रहा है. इतना खूबसूरत सेरेमनी है और हम लोग देख नहीं पा रहे. प्लीज थोड़ा सा नील डाउन हो जाइए. थैंक यू. आई एम श्योर अब आप देख पा रहे होंगे. सो नाउ यू कैन क्लैप वंस अगेन बिकॉज यू गेट अ बेटर व्यू ऑफ व्हाट्स हैपनिंग ऑन स्टेज. थैंक यू. It's the time now to listen to the very inspiring words of Lord Mayor, Dr. Dinesh Sharma. Please put your hands together to welcome on stage our Lord Mayor, Dr. Dinesh Sharma.
On behalf of citizens of Lucknow, I welcome our most honored Chief Guest Honorable Sri Rajnath Singh Ji, Home Minister of India. It is my privilege to welcome Your Excellencies, Mr. Chandrika Kumartunge, President of Sri Lanka, Mr. Mathaland, President of South Africa, Mr. Masic, President of Croatia, Mr. Rodney Lawrence Williams, Governor General of Antigua and Barbuda, Sir Lakoba, Governor General of Tuvalu, Mr. Minister of Justice of Cambodia, Mr. Tayyab Low, Minister of Justice of Algeria. A special welcome also to Your Excellencies and Excellencies the Ambassador of Croatia, Sudan and Algeria, and Honorable Chief Justices, judges, legal luminaries from 62 countries. Participating in the 16th International Conference of Chief Justices of the World on Article 51 of Constitution of India. I welcome you all in Lucknow city, which is famous for its culture and religious unity and communal harmony. I also wish to congratulate the organizer of the historic conference, the founders of City Montessori School, Lucknow, Dr. Jagdish Gandhi, Dr. Bharti Gandhi, and CMS President Professor Geeta Gandhi Kingdom. It is a defining moment for us as the conference is being organized with the theme of uniting the world for children through enforceable world law and effective global governance. The Constitution of India is a beautiful constitution because it reflects the ancient ethos of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which means that the entire world is one family. Article 51 of the Constitution of India is a wise and far-sighted provision that aims at establishing world unity and world peace. According to Article 51 of the Constitution of India, the state shall endeavor to, number 1, promote international peace and security, number 2, maintain just and honorable relation between nations, number 3, foster respect for international law, and number 4, encourage settlement of international disputes by arbitration. I am happy to say that CMS has striving to ensure a peaceful, safe, and prosperous future for world children by organizing this annual international conference of Chief Justices of the world. On behalf of all peace-loving citizens of Lucknow, I once again welcome all our distinguished guests. I wish you all the very best in the endeavors and extend my full support and appreciation. I hope that Your Excellencies and all eminent guests will have a very pleasant stay in India. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, sir, for that very warm address. And thanks for your support that you have always extended, and we really look forward to your support in the coming years too. They say, all birds find shelter during a rain. All small little birds, they find shelter during a rain, but eagle avoids rain by flying above the clouds. Problems are common, but attitude makes the difference. It's time to invite on stage a person with a very positive attitude, and that is none other than our chief guest for today. We request our Honorable Chief Guest, Shri Rajnath Singh Ji, Minister for Home Affairs, Government of India, to kindly enlighten all of us with his words of wisdom. Can we please put our hands together to welcome on stage our very dear, respected, Honorable Sri Rajnath Singh, Minister for Home Affairs, Government of India.
Former President of Sri Lanka, Her Excellency Ms. Chandrika Kumar Tunge, former President of South Africa, His Excellency Mr. Galema Motlanthe, former President of Croatia, His Excellency Mr. Stefan Mesic, Governor General of Antigua, His Excellency Mr. Rodney Lawrence Williams, Governor General of Tuvalu, His Excellency Mr. T. Iraleli, and other senior ministers from many participating countries, legal luminaries, and other higher dignitaries. First of all, I welcome you all to my country, India, and also to my home constituency, Lucknow. The mayor of this beautiful city, Dr. Dinesh Sharma, is also present here, and he is presiding the inaugural session of this conference. I am happy to be present before this august gathering of some of the former heads of states and legal luminaries from different parts of the world, and share some thoughts in this international conference organized on Article 51 of the Constitution of India with the special theme of uniting the world for children through enforceable world law and effective global governance. I am thankful to the founder of the City Montessori School, Lucknow, Mr. Jagdish Gandhi, Mrs. Jagdish Gandhi, and the entire CMS family for inviting me to this highly intellectually oriented conference. Mr. and Mrs. Gandhi have made tremendous contribution in the field of education, and they believe in building vibrant institutions. This conference will see participation of 64 countries and many towering legal personalities and other dignitaries from India and abroad. I welcome you all for your valuable participation. I congratulate the entire management team of CMS, principals, teachers, other staff members, and students of CMS, as well as the parents and all other who have contributed for organizing this important event. I am glad to know that the CMS has been striving to ensure a peaceful, safe, and prosperous future for the world's children by organizing this international conference of Chief Justices of the world. At this conference, when children meet Chief Justices and judges and interact with them, they get the desire to learn more about the problems of the world and their solutions. CMS deserves to be congratulated for providing this opportunity to children to meet and interact with such great personalities of the world. I am told the objective of the this international conference of Chief Justices of the world is to inspire the world judiciary to safeguard the future of over 2.5 billion children of the world and also the future generations from the myriad threats of the international terrorism, threats of Third World War, nuclear holocaust, global warming, and climate change. I also wish to support the appeal by 50,000 CMS students to the world judiciary. The theme of the conference is noble, but there is no enforceable international law in the world. that is equally applicable in all the country and to all people of the world. Generally, the treaty and the conventions cover international legal systems. On the other hand, in modern times, the world is reeling under various types of deadly threats and insecurity like those from large-scale terrorism in many parts of the globe, stockpiling of deadly armaments of mass destruction, including nuclear weapons, global warming, and international disputes of various sorts and dimensions. In this scaring scenario, it is the responsibility of present generation to safeguard its own future and also that of the prospective generations. Under the prevailing situation, there is an apparent need for just and enforceable international legal system because of various security and peace concerns that are facing the world today and are further expanding every day. In the absence of such a system, our constitution framers, anticipating this need, made an apt provision in the Indian Constitution by inserting Article 51. Article 51 of the Indian Constitution is the last article in the Part 4th of the Constitution dealing with the directive principles of the state policy. It reads as follows. Article 51, Promotion of International Peace and Security. As Mr. Gandhi mentioned in his speech, the state shall endeavor to promote international peace and security, maintain just and honorable relations between nations. Third, foster respect for the international law and treaty obligations in the dealings of organized peoples with one another. And last, encourage the settlement of international disputes by arbitration. Friends, in the Constituent Assembly debates, draft Article 40 was thoroughly discussed and debated, and with the acceptance of the amendments moved by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, Mr. H.V. Kamath, Anant Sayanam, Iyengar, and P. Subrahman, it became Article 51 of the Indian Constitution. The provisions contained in the Part 4th of the Constitution dealing with directive principles of the state policy are not enforceable by any court of law, but the principles laid down therein are fundamental in the governance of the country. That means they lay down the general policy guidelines for the state to adhere to. Dr. Ambedkar, while speaking in the Constituent Assembly, had said that the intention was that the directive principles should be made the basis of all executive and legislative action that may be taken hereafter in the matter of governance of the country. I am happy to note that the successive governments in India since then are following these principles for framing the state policy. Unfortunately, today the world is engulfed in an atmosphere of terror. Hordes of innocent persons are killed every day in various sorts of violence. Violence is not only confined with the boundaries of the particular nation, it has spread its wings across borders. The present day problems are man to man and country to country. There are territory disputes, border disputes, ethnic disputes, religious disputes, and a problem emanating from myriad other issues leading to clashes and violence. The world is living under the threat of various kinds of terrorist activities, including cross-border terrorism. Individual to individuals and nation-to-nation conflicts and disputes are there, have always been there, and in future also they are not going to vanish altogether. However, their resolution through mutual respect, understanding, cooperation, and if the need be, then through arbitration must be resorted to. Buddhist spiritual guru Dalai Lama, 14th, preaches how peace can be attained. He urges world peace must develop from inner peace. Peace is not just mere absence of violence. Peace is, I think, the manifestation of human compassion. He further advocates that peace doesn't mean an absence of conflicts. Differences will always be there. Peace means solving these differences through peaceful means, through dialogue, education, knowledge, and through human ways. Article 51 is related to international peace and security, honorable relations between the nations, respect for international law and treaty obligations, etc. Today, the communications being faster, the whole world has become a global village, but in Indian philosophy, the concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that is, the whole world is a family, is thousands of years old. This thought is enshrined in Upanishad, which says, Ayam bandhurayam neti gadana lagu chetsham udar charitam tu Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. It translates as that this one is a relative, this other one is a stranger, is for the mean-minded. For those who are known as magnanimous, the entire world constitutes but a family. The teaching, if followed, can bring peace and security in the world. In Hindu philosophy, we pray for universal happiness and peace as contained in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. I would like to read the translation of that stanza. It means that may all attain peace, may all be healthy, may all enjoy good fortune, may none suffer misery and sorrow. And also a mantra from Taittiriya Upanishad. Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu, Sarvesham Bhantir Bhavatu, Sarvesham Purnatah Bhavatu, Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu, Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. It means, may all become fortunate, may all attain peace, may all achieve perfection, and may all be blessed. Not only Hinduism, but all major religions in the world universally, including Buddhism, Sikhism, Jainism, Christianism, Islam, Judaism, and Zoroastrianism, carry the message of peace and security. However, some of the major problems the world is confronted with today are because of wrong interpretation of religious thoughts. All of us know Swami Vivekananda, who was a great Vedic thinker, philosopher, reformer, scholar, and a revolutionary saint of contemporary modern times. He dedicated his entire life to the spiritual and the social upliftment of the common man. He delivered a lecture in Universalist Church, Pasadena, California, on 20th January 1900, wherein he gave the religion-based message to the mankind. The message is as relevant today or even more than it was 115 years ago. I quote what he had said. We find that through there is nothing that has brought to man more blessings than religion. Yet, at the same time, there is nothing that has brought more horror than religion. Nothing has made more for peace and love than religion. Nothing has engendered fiercer hatred than religion. Nothing has made the brotherhood of man more tangible than religion. Nothing has bred more bitter enmity between man and man than religion. Nothing has built more charitable institutions, more hospitals for men and even for animals than religion. Nothing has deluged the world with more blood than religion. While delivering further on the subject to give us the solution also to all the ill effects that have crept in, I once again quote him, our watchword then will be acceptance and not exclusion, not only toleration, for so-called toleration is often blasphemy, and I do not believe in it. I believe in acceptance. Why should I tolerate? Toleration means that I think that you are wrong and I am just allowing you to live. Is it not a blasphemy to think that you and I are allowing others to live? Accept all religions that were in the past and worship with them all. I worship God with every one of them in whatever form they worship Him. I shall go to the mosque of the Mohammedan. I shall enter the Christian church and kneel before the crucifix. I shall enter the Buddhist temple where I shall take refuge in Buddha and in his law. I shall go into the forest and sit down in meditation with the Hindu who is trying to see the light which enlightens the heart of everyone. I am sanguine. If this very simple teaching is followed by all, at least half of the problems of unrest and security will be over. And what we want to achieve by having international law, which is far-fetched dream, can be achieved with the least effort. As enshrined in our ancient scriptures, Indian philosophy and vision seek to lead mankind to the path of peace, non-violence, coexistence, and respect for human dignity. The provisions of Article 51 of the Constitution of India are the manifestation of the same philosophy and ideals of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. I am sure that if all the nations and their people truly follow something which is like as contained in the Article 51 of the Indian Constitution, the world can be a much safer place to live in with greater peace. In the absence of the enforceable international law, which may be equally applicable to all the nations of the world and their people. In the interest of peace and security, it is the call of the hour that the nations and the people maintain peace as a responsibility and self-discipline. Albert Einstein had once said, peace cannot be kept by force. It can only be achieved by understanding. Hindu scriptures teach us that Tantra Tulyam Tapo Nasti, which means that there is no bigger penance than keeping and maintaining peace. I would like to end my speech by quoting a saying of Mahatma Gandhi. The day the power of love and overrules the love of power, the world will know peace, and I very sincerely wish to see that day. Before I close, I wish you all very fruitful deliberations and look forward to learn about the proceedings, recommendations, and outcome of the conference. I am certain that participation of you all here will send out a positive message to all the leaders of the world and will motivate them to come together on a common platform and work towards the common goal of world unity and world peace to ensure a safe future of our children and the generation to come. With these words of peace, I wish for the grand success of this conference. Jai Hind. Thank you very much.
आपको माला पहनाएगा. Students and young members of FAUPAL, an international organization working for peace. All these students have come from various parts of the world. They want to present garland to our chief guest. All the members of FAUPAL, please hurry up. They are the members of the FAUPAL and they are working for world peace and world unity. Dr. Hong is the head of this mission. He could not come. He has sent his good wishes. Yes. You want to say something? Yes. Just 1 minute. 1 minute.
Okay. On behalf of Federation of World Peace and Love, it's our honor to present the movement of Era of Conscience to the Honorable Minister of Home Affairs. And the era of Movement of Conscience is to encourage everyone to speak good words, do the good deeds. It's our honor to be here to invite the Minister to respond to this important movement.
for that very lovely presentation, for the very lovely message as well. And we thank our Honorable Chief Guest for reminding us of our responsibilities in the prevailing circumstances, and also reminding us that how Indian Vedic scriptures, Indian philosophy, all our sages, our philosophers also support the same thought what is there in our constitution as well. In fact, that came first, and then that was kept in mind while drafting the constitution, that India will always support the cause of universal brotherhood, peace and unity. Thank you very much, sir. Unfortunately, there has been some conflict because of religion, which was meant to unite. We'll be talking about it a little later. But right now, it's to again share this pleasure that this conference is a real special one for some special reasons. And one of the special reasons is that we have a very graceful lady here with us as our eminent guest, and that is Her Excellency Madam Chandrika Kumaratunge, President of the Republic of Sri Lanka 1994 to 2005. And it's a great honor for all of us to have you here with us. Can we please put our hands together, dear friends, because we are inviting ma'am on stage to express her views on this occasion. We welcome on stage Her Excellency Madam Chandrika Kumaratunge, President of the Republic of Sri Lanka, 1994 to 2005.
Honorable Minister Rajnath Singh, Mr. Jagdish Gandhi and Mrs. Gandhi, founders of this great institution, the CMS, Excellencies, Honorable Chief Justices, staff of the CMS, distinguished guests. I wish to thank Dr. Jagdish Gandhi, founder, manager of City Montessori School, and Professor Sadeep Srivastava, the leader of this 16th International Conference of Chief Justices of the World, for inviting me to speak at this conference and for giving me the opportunity to participate in this important event in your beautiful city of Lucknow. I'm delighted and honored to be present here today with all the distinguished members of the world judiciary and all these other distinguished persons. May I first take this opportunity to present my sincere congratulations to Dr. Gandhi and Mrs. Gandhi for having founded this most impressive institution, and for the great work they have continued to carry on for more than half a century. All of you gathered here as Chief Justices have an awesome and very special responsibility to safeguard freedom, democracy, and decency in our world. You are the watchdogs, the guardians of the rule of law in your countries and in the world, without which democratic institutions cannot function properly. Your role is most essential for the maintenance of democracy and freedoms within nations as well as within the global community. The theme of this conference is Uniting the World for Children through enforceable world law and effective global governance. What does the world have to do for our children in the present context? I would say, first, ensure a world safe from war, conflict, and violence. Then, guarantee an environment of freedom where children can live in full enjoyment of all their rights, such as freedom from poverty, education for every child, access to health services, freedom from physical and sexual abuse, and so on. To avoid conflict and build a peaceful world, We need to teach our children to accept difference and to celebrate diversity rather than reject it. Education of children, as well as adults for that matter, is the key to achieving unity in diversity, which alone can build a harmonious society which will finally prevent conflict and war. Value systems that promote freedom and equality, knowledge, skills, the right attitudes and behavior, and the capacity to manage conflict are essential ingredients for national and global peace. Schools and universities and the non-formal education institutions must include subjects to impart knowledge on peace, harmony, and reconciliation. Another important factor in the search for peace within nations and globally is the need to understand the real causes of conflict before dealing with their manifest symptoms. There will probably be instances where the interests of one or the other superpower goes against recognizing the true causes of a conflict and then taking action to resolve them. Here, I would say, the international judiciary has once again a most important role to play in ensuring that justice prevails in instances of conflict between states, irrespective of how powerful the perpetrator and how weak the victim. To guarantee these rights and freedoms to our children, we require democratic governments which respect the rule of law, the independence of the judiciary and the police, the public services, the media, and other institutions essential for guaranteeing the proper functioning of democratic rule. This conference accords prominence to Article 51 of the Indian Constitution. Article 51 and its subclauses A to D stipulate, as the Honourable Minister himself mentioned, that a state must promote international peace and security, maintain just and honourable relations between nations, and so on. The implementation of all this lies with individual states, as well as with the international community and its organizations. In order to ensure that stipulations in Article 51 operate effectively within a state, it is evident that the state must be democratic and that its government abides by the rules of good governance. The international community, operating through the United Nations organizations and other international organizations, as well as the international judicial institutions, could fill the gaps when national governments fail to protect the fundamental rights of its citizens and to guarantee good governance. The theme of this conference implies that the guarantee of international peace and security, respect for international law and so on, contained in Article 51, will necessarily lead to an environment safe for children through enforcing world law and establishing global and good governance. This is a very important assertion. In our global world, in which the guarantee of fundamental freedoms and good governance are accepted norms for those who govern, the world community has a responsibility to concern itself when these norms are violated. Hence, the importance of international law is to ensure that states behave in a manner to ensure global peace and security. The growing awareness and acceptance of the role of international law in encouraging and assisting national governments to protect the fundamental rights of their citizens have contributed to a growing tendency on the part of national judiciaries to refer to international law in instances where the national law does not deal with a problem sufficiently or has not brought in enabling legislation. Several such instances in India and my country, Sri Lanka, come to mind. The classic case of Vishaka versus the state of Rajasthan, which dealt with an incident of sexual harassment in the workplace. Here, the Supreme Court held that its obligations under the Indian Constitution for the enforcement of fundamental rights in the absence of legislation must be viewed along with the role of the judiciary to act independently and effectively to guarantee the rule of law, the attainment of human rights, as well as to administer the law impartially between citizens and the state, as well as between citizens. There are many other similar cases, such as Vishwamdar Singh versus Orissa, Basu versus the state of Bengal, and such like. In Sri Lanka, there have been several cases that have acted, where the judiciary has acted in a similar manner, where the courts have utilized international treaties in the absence of implementing legislation in the country. The experience of two major world wars that took place within a quarter of a century in the 20th century, together with many other destructive conflicts during the latter half of the 18th and right throughout the 19th centuries, convinced the world that states cannot be left to themselves to resolve international disputes and even to guarantee internationally accepted norms of democratic freedoms and fundamental rights to its citizens. The Society of Nations, followed by the UNO, were born of this commitment to global peace. The international legal systems and the international courts of justice followed in their wake. The globalized world in which we live, as well as modern communications technology, have ensured a world that is irretrievably connected. Countries can no more remain isolated in their actions. All serious violations of accepted international norms of governance are communicated immediately to the world and become an intrinsic part of the responsibility of the global community. To get back to the protection and guarantee of a safer world for children, it is clear that we need democratic governments practicing good governance. First, to guarantee an environment free from violence of all types, and secondly, to ensure effective development that will eliminate the scourge of poverty and grant equal access to all children living within the state to education, health facilities, as well as equal opportunities for employment. It is equally evident that an independent and effective judiciary is an essential need to guarantee that governments abide by the rule of law and rules of good governance. It is only then that children and all citizens can live with dignity and confidence in a world safe for all. India has a proud history of independent chief justices and an executive that respects the independence of the judiciary. In Sri Lanka, too, we could boast of an independent and well-functioning judiciary until the 1970s, when the executive began to exert political influence on the judiciary, using or abusing the excessive powers of the newly created executive presidency. Even though this situation was subsequently corrected by other governments, the judiciary came under severe attack during the past decade, when the executive took to directing courts with regard to judgments. This process culminated in the illegal sacking of a Chief Justice. South Asia has experienced many instances when governments decide to violate the independence and dignity of the judiciary. How do we build guarantees against such situations? My government enacted in 2001 an amendment to the Constitution, called the 17th Amendment, creating laws and institutions to guarantee the independent and proper functioning of the major institutions which form the pillars on which democratic governance is built: the judiciary, the police, the public service, the elections department, the Human Rights Commission, and the Bribery and Corruption Commission. This law was unfortunately summarily abrogated by the subsequent regime, which indulged with impunity in the violation of the independence of all these institutions. In the case of Sri Lanka, this unhappy situation was finally resolved by a change of regime brought about through people's power. Civil society inspired democratic political parties to join hands and rise up against authoritarian rule and effect regime change. Finally, I would like to reiterate that the independence of the judiciary, the police, and the proper functioning of the law can only be assured where there is a strong political will of governments to put in place the laws and regulations, the systems and procedures, as well as the institutions required for this. The relationship between the government, the law, and the judiciary is symbiotic, with the judiciary mediating the interplay of relations between the government and the law. The one cannot function properly without the other functioning effectively. How do states, as well as the global community, ensure that the institutions essential for democratic governance operate as required? This question remains a dilemma to our modern world. I hope that this conference will successfully deliberate these questions, among others, and give the world some indications of possible and durable solutions. I wish you luck in your endeavors. Thank you.